We are winding down our 52 blocks, 52 weeks series, and I realized something. All the blocks are different sizes. So how are we going to make them fit together? The answer is filler blocks. Let's get started. Can you believe that we are on block number 49? That's pretty hard to believe. I figured now would be a good time to start planning how these blocks will come together. And as I started to lay out the quilt top, I realized that we're going to have to fill in some space because, well, all the blocks are different sizes. Filler blocks to the rescue. What are filler blocks, you ask? Well, I call them filler blocks because you can easily modify the shape and size of these blocks to fill in gaps and size differences between different sized blocks. They are basically made to, well, fill in the gaps. Later in the series, I'll put a video together on how I put the entire quilt top together, but I figured we should make a few filler blocks because we're gonna need them. So the next few blocks will be filler blocks, starting with this week's block, the braid. The fabric requirements to make this week's block is fairly simple. You just need strips. So here we have the leftover strips from when we made this block here. And so I figured there's no point in me cutting more fabric when I already have these available for me. So these were all 2.5 inches wide. Now you can use 2.5 inches, you can use 1.5 inch. The width of the strip doesn't really matter. The length of the strip, however, well, that's going to be a different story. Now for purposes of this video, I'm going to just cut each of these strips to 6 inches. However, because we are using this as a filler block, there's going to be times where we're going to need something that is 6 inches long. There could be times where we're going to need something that is 4 inches long. And again, we're going to be cutting, or you can trim this down to any varying size or any varying width. I'm just going to teach you how to construct the block, but eventually the final block size is going to be different depending upon the needs of where you need it to fill in. Again, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to subcut each of these strips down to 6 inches, but in the final block, or when you finally use it in the quilt, it might be a different size. Some have told me that in order to get this quilt started, it is a lot easier if you have a square available, just to help you get started with the block. So here I have a 2.5 inch square. I might use it, I might not, who knows. Now this is a 2.5 inch square. If you have one available, grab it. Let's get this block started. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these strip size, or 2.5 inch strips, to 6 inches long. Each of these strips is actually folded in half. And so usually when I cut it down, I actually like to, first of all, cut the selvage edges off, which in this one it already is. But instead of cutting the folded side off, I usually start with the cut side, measure it from there, and cut it to the length that I need. That way, if I do need an extra piece, I still got this folded side connected, in which it's not separated into a million different pieces, so I can still use that portion of it. Now the beauty of this particular block is that because it's a filler and because you don't need to get it so precise, I mean, you are gonna eventually just trim this down to a certain size. You know, it doesn't have to be a block where everything has to be super accurate. Again, I'm just gonna cut this down to 6 inches here. Okay, I'll just go put this aside for a second. So there's one set of 6 inch strips, and here is the other. Now again, you can use any width of strips that you got. I'm just using these 2.5 inch strips because they were readily available and I don't have to cut more fabric. So again, I can use these in a future block, or I can even use them in this block. Who knows what'll happen. Okay, then here's my second set. So to get this block started, or what we're gonna do with this block, how we're gonna construct this block is what I'm trying to say, is like this. Now, if you're gonna use a starter or a square starter like this, here I have a 2.5 inch square. I'm gonna put that square here. Then the first fabric, or the first strip, you can either lay it on the left or on the right. Either which way will work. But you're gonna sew your 1/4 inch seam right here. Then the next fabric goes on the other side, in which then you sew your seam there. And eventually what'll happen is that you'll start getting this braided effect. And your fabrics, by the way, do not have to match on both sides. So if I wanted to, I could construct it so that these two fabrics are the same. Then your next two are also gonna be, or can be, the same. Here's a sample of the block that we are making. Now notice that on here, I actually made it so that the two purples were together, the two oranges were together here and here. So you can lay out the block like this if you want to, but I'm gonna just totally scramble this up. So I'm not gonna worry about having matching fabrics. I'm just gonna grab something random and just sew it. So let's get this one started. Well, maybe I will use the square. I'm just gonna lay the square right on top of the strip. So 1/4 inch down one side. This is a project where you probably do wanna have like a leader or an ender in mind, or if you have a fabric or a thread cutter on your machine, which I don't. But if you do have a leader and ender, this is a good project to use it on. So we got our first seam on there, and I'm just finger pressing the seam allowance over to one side. I'm gonna just press it towards the square here. And I'm just gonna grab a random fabric, place it this way, right sides together, and we're gonna sew our seam here. And we'll press this one back, or we'll finger press this back. Where's Woody? We're gonna go to work today, Woody. Yeah, and we'll use Woody to press this back. Let me do this one. On a unit like this, I need to sew on this side of it. I just flip it over. I don't stress about trying to worry about which side is up and which side is down. So on the left side, you're gonna see me flip the unit over, and we're just gonna sew from the back side, just like this. I'm just gonna be making 4 patches as a leader and ender project. Not sure what exactly I'm gonna use it for, but I'm just making a whole bunch of them. So when I do need them, I'm gonna be ready. I have a whole army of 4 patches, watch out. Throw that aside. Okay, so I got that one there. Ooh, I like this one. Yeah, I like this one here. So we'll sew that one on. And we're gonna use Woody to get this one pressed back. Now, some people, when they start constructing this block, for them, it's very important to keep the block centered. So I've seen some tutorials where they put, after they sew a few rows together, they'll grab a ruler, and what they're doing is they're trying to make sure that their block here stays centered. So here's what I mean. And this is where the benefit of using that square actually helps. I put the 2-inch line from the ruler right there on the point, And I'm trying to see, does that same 2-inch line go through the point there? Yes, it does. Now, when we start crossing into the sections where we sewed the strips, I'm trying to see, okay, does the seam where this strip meets up with this strip, does that point still land on the 2-inch line? And yes, it does. In which then I can definitely see up here that this point is right in line with the 2-inch line here. So it's a way of making sure that your strips are, or that the block you're sewing is not curving one way or curving this way. Now, is it important for it to be 100% accurate? Absolutely not. But kind of helps to just kind of keep the block in even shape or even form. But let's just continue on. No, I already sewed that one. So what else do we got? Ah, here we go. No, wait, I don't want to pull from there. I'll pull this one. I'm gonna lay that on there, turn it around. Cut that off. Here's my 4-patch that I'm using as a leader and ender project. And I'll put this aside because I'm gonna press that later on. Got my other 2.5-inch square, and let's do some blues now. I'm singing the blues. Yeah, that's a song I always have to sing whenever I pull out a blue fabric. Don't ask me why. I'm singing the blues. So now we grab Woody. Then we can do this one on this side since I got it on the other side there. Okay, so you get the basic idea. You started off with a square, or if you chose to do this, you started off with the square. Now, if you chose not to use the square, what you could have done, and this is what I usually do, is just take your 2 fabrics, lay it right sides together, just like this, and we're just sewing this short distance here. But since I used the square, I don't know if the square really does help or not. Since I used the square, you saw how I did it. Took the 1 strip here, the square there, put it right sides together, sew it. Continue on laying down your strips, sew the 1/4 inch, flip it back, sew the other strip to the other side, right sides together, sew it 1/4 inch here, flip it back, and keep going for as long as you want, for as long as you need. Besides a crafter, quilter, and I guess maker is what you would say, one of the other things that I really like to do is go to the movies. And so I was looking at some of the movies that are coming out this summer, and let's just say it's, I guess it's kind of impressive, but I've been noticing a lot that, I don't know, maybe writers are not being as creative, or maybe they're just running out of ideas, who knows. Kind of noticed that some of the storylines, they're remakes of movies that have already been made. Case in point, how many Spider-Man movies do we really need to have? How many Star Trek movies have there been? How many Star Wars movies? Oh my gosh. It's like the saga that never ends. And you know what? Even though if characters die, they always seem to make it back, or they come back to life somehow very magically. One day, a bunch of coworkers and I were kind of talking about this, and question kind of came up during the discussion. You know, what movie would we do, or what movie would we want to remake or see remade? You know, a lot of people said that they would want to see the original Star Wars get redone, or some of the coworkers said they wanted to see another version of the original Star Wars. For me personally, I didn't really care for the whole Star Wars saga, but Apparently it's a thing because people get dressed up and wait hours in line for that movie when it comes out. Even Star Trek. Star Trek is a little interesting because even though the main characters have all died off, guess what? They created the next generation. Going back to this discussion, my personal movie that I would want to see be remade was Gone with the Wind. That's a classic in which I would want to definitely see how a modern filmmaker would reinterpret that particular movie. Or how about an old Western called, maybe some of you know this, McClintock. That's a John Wayne movie. And the first time I saw it, I just kind of laughed because some of the scenes are just hilarious. When you got a woman punching a man in the face, hey, that's my kind of movie. I'm not an advocate of domestic violence, so don't read into that statement. So here's a non-quilting discussion or non-quilting question that I'm going to pose to all of you. What movie, or even maybe what TV show, whatever, because even TV shows get remade. But what movie or what TV show would you want to see get remade? Put a comment down below, let everybody know. It'd be interesting to see what people say on this one. I know the movie Sabrina has been remade. That's a classic movie. Here's definitely one I would definitely want to see get remade. Or not really, maybe not remade, but maybe I just want to see what they would come up with. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 40 years later. Yeah, Keanu Reeves. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Even Superman. How many versions of Superman have there been? There's only one Superman. That's Christopher Reeves. Come on. Everybody else is like, okay, yeah. Although Henry Cavill, yeah. He does look good in that tight suit. I would definitely like to see an update of the Rocky Horror Show. Rocky Horror, that one with the weird, interesting characters and everybody dress up to go see the movie. Rocky Horror Show. What is that? Eventually I'll find it. I'll Google it. Put the title in somewhere. That'd be an interesting remake to see how people would, or how a movie director would interpret that movie. Another trend that I've been also noticing is a lot of successful movies also become Broadway musicals. Case in point, I was so shocked that they actually turned this film into a musical. Remember the movie Ghost with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg? That became a Broadway musical. I'm like, how can you turn that story into a musical? Let's see, there was also Legally Blonde. Well, maybe some of you have watched it, maybe some of you have not. That's where the bend and snap. Bend and snap. If you watch the movie, you understand the reference. Or I wonder if they made a whole dance number out of that movement. Or out of that catchphrase, I should say. Bend and snap. Well, they actually did the whole dance sequence in the movie, so what am I talking about? Then I also like my, sometimes I feel like a kid when I'm watching these movies, especially when it comes to cartoons, because I was so happy that they are making another Minion movie. I'm a huge Minions fan. Don't judge me on that. I just think they're cute and they're funny. Because I used to live very close to Universal Studios Hollywood, and I had a pass, an annual pass, where I could just basically visit the amusement park at any time I wanted to. First thing that I would always do is, as soon as we walk through those doors or through the gates, I'm looking for those Minions. Had to grab a selfie with them. Don't judge, you probably do it too. Wow, there's a lot of liquid in here. Why do I do that? I try and get all the liquid out of the ball only to just put it right back in the cup. Lavender tea. Definitely tastes like lavender. But it's good. I like it. Think this will be long enough. Well, I was really just hoping to make a block that was maybe 6 inches wide by, this can be probably 12 inches long. Now, when you actually put this block into the actual quilt, again, this is a filler block, so you're gonna be cutting this down or trimming it down to varying sizes, and just to make it fit a certain spot within the quilt. So your final block size is not gonna be exactly the same as what I'm gonna do, but just for the sake of getting this particular block done and just showing you how to trim it down, I'm gonna make a, can I do a 6 inch? Well, I'm gonna make a certain width and a certain length. Let's get this block kind of pressed down because I only have it finger pressed for now, but let's get it fully pressed down and let's trim up this block. Here is our braided quilt block, and I'm gonna cut this, well, I was looking to see if I could actually make it a 6 inch wide, but it doesn't look like I can. And now that I see this, there is an error here because notice that I sewed these two together when I was actually supposed to just sew here and then sew this one. So that might cause a problem, but you know, if I didn't point it out, you probably would not have noticed it. I'm just gonna cut it down anyway. I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I was gonna see if we can make a 5 inch wide. Looks like we can. So here's what I'm doing. Since half of 5 inches is 2.5, I'm gonna place that 2.5 inch line, and I'm gonna put the line here right on top of this end point. And as I go through the block, I'm just trying to adjust it ever so slightly so that at each of these intersections, that line will meet that intersection. Okay, this one's totally off, but this intersection is not even supposed to be there, so it's supposed to be there. Again, this doesn't have to be 100% exact. It can be a little off. There's wiggle room here. So all of this is going to be excess in which I can cut that off. And I can probably put these in my crumb bin, or maybe I'll make a half square triangle out of them or do something with it. Now I'll turn this around. And same thing again, putting 2.5 inches on the point and just making sure that it's somewhat aligned. So the 2.5 inches is here on, well, right under that dot, but just kind of looking as I come up, does it meet? Yeah, it's a little off there, but I'm not gonna worry about that. Cut all of this excess off. And I'll throw this in my crumb bin. This should now be a 5 inch wide strip. I could trim this at any spot at this point, but we just want to straighten out this edge as well as this edge. And I'm just going to leave it for as long as I can leave it for now. But we'll trim this off. Fit around, and I'm going to line it up again. And I'll just straighten out this edge here. Now this is definitely going in the crumb bin because this is a rather large piece here. And there is my block. Can you find where the error is? I can't. Actually, I think I cut that piece off. It's been circumcised. My block finishes at 5 inches wide. And how long is this? This will be about 10 3/4. That's the size block that I made for this tutorial. Now again, I've been saying this throughout the whole video. You know, when you actually make your block, or when you put the block in the quilt, your blocks are going to be of varying sizes, again, because you're going to be trimming it down to the specific size that you need to fill in the holes. Your block is not going to be the same size as this. It's going to be something totally different. The point that I wanted to make in this video was just how to construct it and how to trim it down to make it to the size that you need. I could have very well made this a little thinner or a little narrow. I could have actually made it a lot shorter, or I could have gone the other direction where I could have made this a lot wider, in which case then I would have needed longer strips here rather than just using 6 inches. I maybe could have used 8 or maybe even 10 inch, and I could have just kept on sewing strips to make it longer. Hey, the choice is yours. Just make it to the size that you need in your quilt. Now, some other options that you can do, and here's something that I might consider doing. These edges here, these are all on the bias, and if you don't know what that really is, well, that's the stretchiest part of the fabric. So because we cut these on an angle here, I can really, without much effort, I can kind of pull it apart. Whereas if it's on what is called the straight of grain, yeah, I mean, it doesn't stretch as much. But when it's on the bias, or when you cut fabrics at an angle like that, yeah, it doesn't take much to just start stretching it and distorting it. Some people don't mind having an edge like this that is cut on the bias. Some people do. I'm one of those that, well, I don't really trust it because I know that I have a tendency of pulling and tugging on fabrics. So what I might do, or I may sew on a strip of fabric just as a small border, maybe a 1.5 inch black strip or something, just to put a border around it and actually more or less to kind of secure the block here. But I'm not going to do that now because, again, until I get the final quilt top fully assembled, I don't know what size block I'm going to need. So, but that's something that you can do if you're afraid that you're going to start stretching and distorting this block, because again, it is a bias cut on all 4 sides. And here is my braid block. Now, this particular block that I made for this video, it ends up being 5 inches wide by 10 3/4 inches long. But remember, again, I've said it time and time throughout this video, your final block is going to be of a different size. The cool thing about this block is you can make it of varying lengths and as well as varying widths. And again, you don't have to use 2.5 inch strips like how I did. You could use various strips of various widths. Maybe make it out of a 1 inch strip or a 1.5 inch strip. You can make it wider using a 3 inch strip. Choice is yours. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed making a braid block. Now, we're going to be doing a series of these filler blocks just so that we have a little bit more of a variety in terms of what to do in those empty spaces where you can't make 2 blocks fit together. So in the coming weeks, we'll do a few of these just to give you some ideas as to how to fill up the space in your quilt top when we start putting it together. But for now, thanks for watching, and as always, go out and create something. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications on when I upload the next video. Put a comment down below saying what you liked or maybe even what you didn't like. And join the Facebook discussion group at Treasure Heart Creations. You can post pictures of the blocks that you created, or just scroll through and gather inspiration from other Treasure Heart Creation Group members. And from time to time, there are giveaways exclusively for Treasure Heart Creation Group members. So use the link in the description box below to sign up. If you're on Instagram, post pictures of the blocks that you're working on using the hashtag THC5252. Well, that's it for now. Now go out and create something. I better stop now before I get myself all confused. Okay, stopping. I'm probably gonna make a whole bunch of these because I got some leftover strips from prior box. Prior box. Yeah, we made some boxes.